Mars has had a long-term residency at the Park MGM, Las Vegas for 8 years and has reportedly racked up $50 million in gambling debt.
Poor is an understatement. I was below poor.
I wrote Billionaire when I was flat broke, and I can't buy a sandwich. Literally.
The Bruno Mars situation was more disturbing than anyone realized.
That's how I would pay my rent. And then I stopped.
So you paid your rent by playing poker?
Behind the Grammy wins and Vegas residencies was a pattern that started in childhood and never stopped.
It works differently for songwriters. Songwriters, you have to work, you have to wait for residuals, you have to pray that the song's gonna be a hit, and then a year later, you might get a check.
The truth about Bruno Mars begins with a 4-year-old boy who learned that survival meant never stopping the show. Peter Gene Hernandez was born into a world where music wasn't just entertainment, it was economic survival. His father, a Puerto Rican percussionist from Brooklyn, had chased dreams to Hawaii in the 1970s. His mother, a Filipino hula dancer and singer, had emigrated from the Philippines with her family. They met in the tourist showrooms of Waikiki Beach, two performers trying to make ends meet in paradise. By age 2, his father had nicknamed him Bruno after wrestler Bruno Sammartino. At 4 years old, Bruno was performing as the world's youngest Elvis impersonator, complete with rhinestone jumpsuits and slick-back hair. The Love Notes, his family's act, performed 6 nights a week in the Polynesian dinner theaters that dotted the Hawaiian tourist district.
One night, my dad brought me up on stage because I've been begging him, for years and years, bring me up, bring me up. So finally, he gives me the opportunity. The band starts playing an Elvis song.
The audiences ate it up. A miniaturized Elvis, barely tall enough to reach the microphone, gyrating and crooning to crowds of sunburned tourists looking for authentic Hawaiian entertainment. The local media dubbed him Little Elvis, and he appeared on national television, including the Arsenio Hall show at age 6.
It was so much fun to do Elvis because I loved him. And, I watched every single video, every single movie, and he was just cool.
But behind the glittering stage lights, the Hernandez family lived paycheck to paycheck. The tourist industry was unpredictable. When the crowds were good, they ate well. When business was slow, they struggled. Bruno learned early that his performances directly translated to his family's ability to survive. No show meant no money. No money meant no food. The pressure was constant. Bruno would go straight from Roosevelt High School to the showroom at the Sheraton Waikiki, transforming from regular teenager to miniature entertainer. Between the early and late shows, he'd do homework backstage, surrounded by sequins and stage makeup.
I love it. I have to be entertaining. And the show is so different to what I'm used to. I've been playing in clubs and lounges. To be in a big showroom at the Beachcomber Hotel.
The routine was intoxicating. Every night brought applause, laughter, tips from tourists who found his act charming. Bruno developed an addiction to that validation, that moment when a room full of strangers would focus entirely on him. The stage became his refuge from the financial uncertainty that plagued his family. His siblings were more reserved, content to stay in the background. But Bruno craved the spotlight with an intensity that worried his parents. One night, when he had a fever and his mother forbade him from performing, he spent the entire evening crying in their hotel room, devastated that he couldn't put on his jumpsuit and entertain the crowds. The boy who should have been playing with toys was instead studying the mechanics of entertainment, learning to read audiences, understanding that his success on stage directly impacted his family's survival. This wasn't childhood. It was boot camp for a life where music would always be tied to desperation. But even this fragile paradise built on tourist dollars was about to crumble. Bruno Mars was 12 years old when his world collapsed overnight. His parents' marriage, strained by years of financial pressure and conflicting dreams, finally reached its breaking point. The Love Notes disbanded immediately, taking their primary source of income with them. His father lost his businesses. The house was sold. Everything the family had built in Hawaii vanished in a matter of months.
My father had a show in Hawaii, and it was a successful show. And we were doing good, we were well off. When my father and mother divorced, we lost the businesses.
His 4 sisters moved in with their mother, while Bruno and his brother Eric stayed with their father. What followed was a descent into homelessness that would have broken most families. Peter Hernandez Sr. had transformed from a successful bandleader into a man scrambling to keep his sons housed and fed. They slept wherever they could find space. Sometimes it was the back seat of an old 1984 limousine. Other nights, they climbed onto rooftops of buildings, sleeping under the Hawaiian stars with nothing but concrete beneath them. During winter months, when even tropical Hawaii turned cold, they huddled together for warmth on those exposed rooftops. The most surreal chapter of their homelessness came when Peter Sr. took a job at Paradise Park, an abandoned bird zoo in Manoa Valley. The facility was run down, with broken enclosures and overgrown vegetation, but it offered something precious: shelter. They moved into a one-room building that had once housed zoo equipment. The structure barely qualified as housing. It had 4 walls and a roof, but no bathroom, no kitchen, no electricity on most days. When nature called in the middle of the night, they had to walk across the park to find working facilities. During rainstorms, water leaked through the roof. Plants began growing through cracks in the floor. All 3 of them, Peter Sr., Bruno, and Eric, slept in a single bed in the center of the room. It was cramped, uncomfortable, and would have been humiliating if they'd allowed themselves to think about it too much. Instead, they developed a different mindset. They told themselves it was temporary. They reassured each other that they'd figure it out. Bruno would wake up each morning, get ready for school, and emerge from what looked like an abandoned building. Classmates never knew their former Elvis impersonator was living in conditions that would shock most people. The shame was constant, but so was the determination to survive. Music became their medicine during this period. When they had no electricity, they'd sing together in the dark. When they couldn't afford food, they'd harmonize to distract from the hunger. The Bird Zoo became their secret recording studio, where Bruno learned to write songs as a coping mechanism for circumstances beyond his control. But this couldn't last forever. Bruno knew that if he stayed in Hawaii, he'd be trapped in this cycle of poverty and survival forever. Bruno Mars graduated from Roosevelt High School with one plan: escape to Los Angeles and become a star. He'd saved every dollar from his weekend shows, sold his few possessions, and bought a one-way ticket to the mainland. At 18, he was convinced that talent alone would carry him to success. Los Angeles hit him like a physical blow. He'd expected palm trees and sunshine, but found himself living on Mansfield Avenue in conditions that made the Bird Zoo look luxurious. The poverty and squalor of his new neighborhood shocked him. This wasn't the Hollywood he'd imagined. It was a survival zone where dreams came to die. Within his first year, lightning seemed to strike. Motown Records, the legendary label that had launched the Jackson 5 and Marvin Gaye, offered him a contract. At 19, Bruno Mars thought he'd won the lottery. He walked around Los Angeles with newfound confidence, introducing himself as a Motown artist, basking in the prestige of the historic label.
And I started walking around like, yeah, I'm a Motown artist. You know Motown, right? Marvin Gaye, the Jacksons, Bruno.
The deal collapsed almost immediately. Motown executives couldn't figure out what to do with him. He wasn't black enough for urban radio, wasn't white enough for pop stations. His Latin last name confused them, but he didn't speak Spanish. They'd signed him on impulse and dropped him just as quickly, leaving him stranded in Los Angeles with no backup plan.
I used to be able to walk into a room and say, hey, I'm Bruno Mars, I'm signed with Motown Records. And then now I have to say, I got dropped from Motown Records. You lose leverage, you lose.
The devastation was complete. Bruno had to call his parents and admit failure. He'd gone from rising star to unemployed dreamer in months. The phone call home was humiliating. His family had believed in his talent, and now he had nothing to show for their faith. But Los Angeles had taught him something crucial about the music industry. Record labels didn't just want talent, they wanted songs. Hit songs. Songs that could make money immediately. Bruno realized he needed to become a songwriter, not just a performer. He started writing constantly, desperately, hungrily. Every day brought new compositions, most of them terrible. He collaborated with anyone who would work with him, learning the craft through trial and error. The rejection letters piled up, but the songs kept coming.
What I learned most is what good songs do to people. I learned, I played the biggest song, from Michael Jackson to the Police to Zeppelin. I played all these songs in here and saw the reaction from people.
His Hawaii upbringing had prepared him for this grind without him realizing it. Those years of performing for tourists had taught him to entertain anyone. Black audiences, white audiences, Asian tourists, elderly couples, young families. That versatility, born from desperation, became his secret weapon. Music wasn't just his passion anymore. It was his medicine, his therapy, his only path to survival. Every song he wrote was a bet on himself, a refusal to go home defeated. The boy who'd learned to perform for food was now writing songs to avoid starvation. But soon those songs would start catching the attention of people who could change his life forever. Bruno Mars had achieved what most songwriters only dream of, writing a #1 hit song. Right Round by Flo Rida, co-written by Mars, was dominating radio stations worldwide. The track was breaking download records, spending weeks at the top of the charts, making millions of dollars. Bruno should have been celebrating his breakthrough.
I wrote Billionaire when I was flat broke. I just helped write a song for Flo Rida. It was the #1 song in the world, biggest downloads ever. It was the #1 song for I don't know how many weeks.
Instead, he was living hand to mouth, unable to afford basic meals. The music industry's payment structure had trapped him in a cruel paradox. He'd written one of the biggest songs in the world, but the money wouldn't reach him for months, maybe years. Songwriting royalties moved through layers of publishers, record labels, and collection agencies before reaching the actual writers. Bruno was experiencing the most frustrating type of poverty, being broke while being successful. Radio played his song constantly. Clubs packed dance floors when the beat dropped. His collaborator, Flo Rida, was making millions from performances and appearances. But Bruno couldn't buy groceries.
It works differently for songwriters. Songwriters, you have to work, you have to wait for residuals, you have to pray that the song's gonna be a hit, and then a year later, you might get a check.
The situation forced him to hustle harder than ever. He took any songwriting gig available, working with established artists, unknown singers, anyone who would pay up front. The desperation fueled creativity. Some of his best early work came from this period when every song had to count. He lived in cheap apartments, ate cheap food, wore the same clothes repeatedly, but he was learning the business side of music, understanding publishing deals, mechanical royalties, performance rights. The education was expensive in terms of missed meals and unpaid bills, but invaluable for his future career. His collaboration with Philip Lawrence and Ari Levine, who would become the Smeezingtons production team, began during this period. They were all struggling songwriters, pooling resources and splitting expenses. When one person got a gig, they'd share whatever money came in.
Now I can't buy a sandwich. Literally.
The hunger was so intense that it became a running joke among them. They'd gather in cheap studios, living on vending machine snacks and convenience store coffee, crafting songs that would eventually make other people wealthy. But they were building something bigger, a sound, a brand, a reputation in an industry that only respected consistent hits. They'd write for pop stars in the morning, rap artists in the afternoon, and R&B singers at night. The diversity wasn't just smart business, it was survival training. Each genre taught them different techniques, different formulas, different ways to connect with audiences. Bruno realized he was living the same pattern that had defined his childhood, using music as survival, not luxury. The difference was that now he was old enough to understand the stakes and smart enough to play the long game. Every rejected song brought him closer to understanding what the industry wanted. Every collaboration taught him new skills that would serve his eventual solo career. And soon those skills would pay off in ways he never imagined. Atlantic Records finally signed Bruno Mars as a solo artist, but the path to his own success was paved with other people's hits. The Smeezingtons, Bruno, Philip Lawrence, and Ari Levine had become the hottest songwriting and production team in Los Angeles, crafting #1 singles for artists who'd achieved the fame Bruno craved. They'd written Travie McCoy's Billionaire, a song inspired by Bruno's own financial struggles. The irony was perfect. A broke songwriter fantasizing about wealth had created a millionaire's anthem. The track's success opened doors throughout the industry, proving the Smeezingtons could craft hits across multiple genres.
Every time I write a song, anytime anyone writes a song, they're competing with billions of other great songs.
But Bruno's breakthrough as a performer came from an unexpected source. B.O.B., a rising rapper, needed a singer for a track called Nothing on You. The song required someone who could deliver smooth vocals over a hip-hop beat, bridging rap and pop in a way that radio stations would embrace. Bruno's voice, trained in everything from doo-wop to R&B, was perfect. Nothing on You exploded, reaching #1 and introducing Bruno Mars as a featured artist to millions of listeners. Radio DJs started asking who the singer was. Record label executives who'd previously dismissed him were suddenly returning his calls. But the real victory was personal. He'd proven to himself that his voice could carry a hit song.
If I can be happy with whatever song I write and I'm genuinely proud of it. It doesn't matter if it gets success or not, because I could say that's the best that I could do.
The Smeezingtons were operating like a hit factory, sometimes working on 20 different projects simultaneously. They'd write for pop stars in the morning, rap artists in the afternoon, and R&B singers at night. The diversity wasn't just smart business, it was survival training. Each genre taught them different techniques, different formulas, different ways to connect with audiences. Bruno's childhood in Hawaii had prepared him for this versatility. Growing up performing for tourists meant entertaining people from every background, every age group, every musical preference. Now he was applying those same skills in recording studios, crafting songs that could cross all demographic boundaries. The money started flowing, slowly at first, then in larger amounts as their songs climbed charts worldwide. Bruno could finally afford decent food, better clothes, a safer apartment, but the hunger remained. Success had only increased his appetite for more. More hits, more recognition, more control over his artistic destiny. The Smeezingtons were writing Bruno's ticket to solo stardom, one hit at a time. Each successful collaboration with another artist was proof that his voice and songwriting could compete at the highest levels. The question was whether he could transition from behind-the-scenes hitmaker to front-and-center superstar. His Hawaiian childhood had taught him that the show must always go on, regardless of circumstances. Now he was about to discover if that lesson would carry him through the pressures of fame, wealth, and expectations that success would bring. The boy who'd learned to perform through homelessness was about to face an entirely different kind of survival test. But first, tragedy would strike in the most unexpected way. Bruno Mars was returning to Los Angeles from an overseas tour when his phone rang at the airport. His mother, Bernadette, the woman who had danced hula while his father played percussion, the anchor of their family through homelessness and hardship, was in critical condition at Queens Medical Center in Honolulu. He immediately boarded the next flight to Hawaii, but time had already run out. Bernadette San Pedro Bayo died the following day at age 55 from complications of a brain aneurysm. The call that had started as medical urgency became the worst news of his life. Bruno had just bought his mother a house in Hawaii with his newfound success. She'd been calling him almost daily, excited about the pool, the garden, watching her grandchildren play in the yard. She was getting younger, he thought, finally able to enjoy life without the financial stress that had defined their family for so long. The funeral was a blur of grief and guilt. Bruno kept thinking about missed phone calls, rushed conversations, opportunities to spend more time with her that he'd sacrificed for his career. The success that had allowed him to buy her that house felt meaningless now that she wasn't there to enjoy it.
I want to dedicate this award to my mother, Ma. I know you watching. I hope you're smiling. I love you. Thank you guys so much.
Her death changed everything about how he approached music and life. The woman who had encouraged him to keep going when Motown dropped him, who had celebrated every small victory along the way, was gone. The foundation of his emotional world had disappeared overnight. Bruno struggled to return to touring just weeks after the funeral. Standing on stage, entertaining crowds while processing grief felt impossible. But he remembered his mother's words, her constant encouragement to keep going and keep doing it. The shows became memorial services, ways of honoring her memory through the music she'd always supported. The loss exposed how much his success had cost him personally. He'd achieved everything he dreamed of as a boy: fame, money, sold-out arenas, but at the expense of time with the people who mattered most. His mother had died just as he'd finally reached a place where he could take care of her properly. Interviews became painful when reporters asked about his mother. He'd start crying mid-sentence, unable to finish thoughts about her influence on his career. The pain was so raw that he considered stepping away from music entirely, questioning whether any amount of success was worth the sacrifice. But music had always been his medicine, and now it became his therapy. He wrote songs about loss, about family, about the cost of chasing dreams. The grief deepened his artistry, adding emotional weight to performances that had previously been pure entertainment. His mother's death marked the end of his innocence about success. Fame and money couldn't prevent loss or buy back time. Bruno Mars had achieved superstar status, but with that success came a pressure that threatened to crush him. Every song was expected to be a hit. Every performance was scrutinized by critics and fans who remembered his previous perfection. The entertainment industry had transformed him from hungry artist to profitable commodity. The studio had become both sanctuary and prison. Bruno would spend months crafting single songs, recording dozens of versions, obsessing over every detail. What had once been instinctive creativity was now calculated perfection. Each decision weighed against commercial expectations and artistic integrity.
I think the most dangerous thing that can happen for a musician is to think that everything you write is good.
His collaborators watched him transform from the relaxed songwriter who'd written hits effortlessly into someone consumed by anxiety about maintaining his reputation. Studio sessions that had once been fun became marathons of second-guessing and endless revision. The success of Uptown Funk with Mark Ronson had raised the bar impossibly high. The song spent 14 weeks at #1, became a global phenomenon, won Grammy Awards, and generated hundreds of millions of dollars. But instead of satisfaction, Bruno felt trapped by the expectation that every future release needed to match that level of cultural impact. He started avoiding social media, unable to handle the constant commentary about his work. Fan expectations felt crushing. They wanted him to simultaneously evolve artistically and recreate the exact feelings his previous hits had generated. Critics analyzed every song for authenticity, questioning whether his retro style was homage or appropriation. The pressure extended to his live performances. Audiences expected perfection not just in vocals, but in choreography, stage production, and energy level. Every concert was compared to previous shows, with fans nitpicking any perceived decline in performance quality. The spontaneity that had defined his early career became impossible under such scrutiny.
For me, I always remind myself what it felt like to finish When I Was Your Man, or Locked Out of Heaven, or Uptown Funk, and those feelings.
Bruno began experiencing what he later called creative paralysis. He'd write songs but immediately doubt their worth, wondering if they measured up to his previous standards. The confidence that had carried him through homelessness and early career struggles was being eroded by the expectations that came with success. His team tried to shield him from the worst criticism, but he remained hyper-aware of every review, every social media comment, every industry opinion about his relevance. The boy who'd performed confidently for tourists in Waikiki was now second-guessing every creative choice. Sleep became elusive as his mind raced through potential criticism of works in progress. He'd wake up at 3 in the morning with ideas for improving songs, driving to the studio to make changes that might not even be necessary. The relentless pursuit of perfection was consuming his peace of mind. Bruno Mars signed a multi-year residency deal with MGM Resorts, establishing himself as a Las Vegas fixture with regular shows at Park MGM. The arrangement seemed perfect: guaranteed income, loyal audience, artistic control over production. But Sin City had its own way of capturing performers who thought they could play by their own rules. Las Vegas residencies offered artists financial security and creative freedom, but they came with unique temptations. The city was built on gambling, and high-profile performers often received VIP treatment at casino tables as part of their contracts. For someone like Bruno, who'd used poker to pay rent during his struggling years, the environment was intoxicating. His early gambling had been strategic, calculated, a survival skill when songwriting income was unpredictable. He'd developed a reputation among fellow musicians as someone who could read opponents and manage risk effectively. But Las Vegas gambling operated on a different level, with stakes that would have been unimaginable during his broke songwriter days. The residency performances were spectacular. Bruno commanded the stage with confidence, backed by the hooligans, delivering shows that consistently sold out. Audiences flew in from around the world to see him perform in the intimate setting that Vegas residencies provided. Professionally, everything was going perfectly.
I wouldn't go that far. I had a lucky streak for a while, but at some point it had to come crashing down.
But between shows, the casino floors beckoned. High roller treatment meant private gaming rooms, personal dealers, and credit lines that reflected his earning power rather than his common sense. The adrenaline rush of performing translated naturally into the thrill of high-stakes gambling. Las Vegas had a way of making millionaires feel invincible. After commanding an audience of thousands, sitting at a blackjack table with $100,000 hands felt like natural progression. The same confidence that made him a compelling performer made him a bold gambler. Friends and industry colleagues began noticing changes in his behavior around money. The man who'd once counted every dollar was making casual references to massive wins and losses. The financial discipline that had carried him through poverty seemed to evaporate in the neon-lit casino environment. His Vegas residency became enormously successful, consistently ranking among the highest-grossing shows on the Strip. But rumors began circulating in industry circles about his gambling habits, whispers about losses that dwarfed most people's annual incomes. The pattern was insidious. Perform brilliantly, earn massive amounts, risk those earnings on games of chance, repeat. Success and self-destruction became intertwined in ways that would define the next phase of his career. Las Vegas had made him wealthy and famous, but it was also teaching him that sometimes the house always wins, and the house was about to collect in ways that would shock the entertainment world. News Nation broke a story that would dominate entertainment headlines for weeks. According to anonymous sources close to the situation, Bruno Mars had accumulated approximately $50 million in gambling debt at MGM properties.
Mars has had a long-term residency at the Park MGM, Las Vegas, for 8 years and has reportedly racked up $50 million in gambling debt.
The allegations claim that his Vegas residency, which appeared to be a lucrative career move, was actually a financial prison. The report painted a picture of financial enslavement disguised as success. Sources claim that Mars earned approximately $90 million annually from his residency deal, but the majority of those earnings went directly toward paying down gambling losses. After taxes, his actual take-home was allegedly around $1.5 million per performance. Still substantial, but nowhere near what his gross earnings suggested. The mathematics were staggering. $50 million in gambling debt represented more than most people would earn in multiple lifetimes. For context, it was enough money to buy mansions, fund charities, or support entire communities. But in the world of high-stakes gambling, it was a debt that could accumulate over months of bad luck and poor decisions. Industry insiders weren't entirely surprised by the allegations. Las Vegas had a long history of capturing successful entertainers in cycles of earning and losing. The city's business model depended partly on high-profile gamblers whose losses subsidized the entertainment they provided to tourists. MGM Resorts immediately issued a statement denying the allegations, calling them completely false and emphasizing their positive relationship with Mars. But the specificity of the rumored debt amount and the detailed nature of the claims suggested that someone with inside knowledge had provided information to reporters. Social media exploded with reactions ranging from sympathy to mockery. Some fans expressed concern about gambling addiction, while others made jokes about Mars needing to write more hit songs to pay off casinos. The story became a cultural moment that exposed society's complex attitudes toward wealth, addiction, and celebrity downfall. Bruno himself initially remained silent about the allegations, letting his representatives handle the media response. But the rumors persisted, growing in detail and specificity as more sources came forward with claims about his gambling habits and financial arrangements with MGM. The debt allegations, whether true or false, highlighted the dangerous relationship between entertainment industry success and gambling culture. Las Vegas residencies were supposed to provide financial security for aging performers, but they could also become elaborate traps for artists who couldn't resist the allure of high-stakes gaming. The story revealed how quickly public perception could shift. Bruno had been seen as a savvy businessman who'd secured a lucrative Vegas deal. Now the question was, how would the man who'd survived every challenge so far handle this most public crisis? Bruno Mars decided to address the gambling debt rumors in the most Bruno Mars way possible, with humor, swagger, and a refusal to let speculation diminish his artistic achievements. Rather than hiding from the controversy, he embraced it with the same confidence that had carried him from homelessness to superstardom. During a performance with Blackpink's Rosé, he posted to Instagram with his trademark playful energy, joking about being almost out of debt while celebrating their collaboration. The post went viral, not because it confirmed or denied the allegations, but because it showed Bruno's refusal to let rumors control his narrative. His response strategy was brilliant in its simplicity. Neither deny nor confirm, but demonstrate through action that his career remained unstoppable. He announced additional Vegas residency dates, collaborated with major artists, and continued delivering the high-energy performances that had made him famous. The gambling debt story, whether accurate or exaggerated, had become part of his mythology rather than his downfall. Fans appreciated his ability to laugh at himself and his situation, viewing his humor as evidence of resilience rather than irresponsibility. Industry observers noted that Mars had handled the controversy better than most celebrities facing similar allegations. Instead of defensive statements or angry denials, he'd use the attention to showcase his personality and redirect focus toward his music. His collaboration with Lady Gaga on Die With a Smile became a massive hit, proving that personal controversies hadn't diminished his commercial appeal or creative abilities. The song's success reminded everyone why he'd become successful in the first place. His talent transcended whatever financial or personal issues he might be facing. The boy who'd learned to perform through homelessness, family tragedy, and career setbacks was now applying those same survival skills to navigate celebrity scandal. Every challenge became material for his artistic persona, another chapter in a life story defined by resilience. Bruno Mars had spent his entire career proving that circumstances don't define outcomes. Whether he was sleeping in abandoned zoos, getting dropped by record labels, losing his mother, or facing gambling debt allegations, he'd consistently found ways to transform adversity into artistic fuel. His story wasn't a cautionary tale about the dangers of success. It was a masterclass in how to maintain authenticity while navigating the complex pressures of modern celebrity. The kid from Hawaii had learned that the show must always go on, regardless of what's happening behind the curtain. The gambling rumors would probably follow him for years, becoming part of his legend like Johnny Cash's prison concerts or Elvis's Vegas years. But Bruno Mars had already proven that he was more than any single story about his personal life. He'd survived poverty, homelessness, industry rejection, personal tragedy, and public scandal by doing what he'd always done, making music that moved people and never stopping the show. Anyway, that's it for the video, folks. Bye.